Welcome to another episode of the Empowered Half Hour, and I have a really special guest for you guys today. I have with me Maria Tomas-Keegan, and she is a career and life coach with a specialization in transitions. She also has a podcast, Transition and Thrive with Maria, and I was recently on that. And we just had such natural conversation that I had to extend the invitation for Maria to come on here and talk to all of you guys. So without further ado, Maria, welcome to the show.
Oh, Becca, thank you. I am so happy to be here. You're right. We had such a good time on my show, and I am just thrilled to be here.
Yes, me too. So I'd love for you to share with the audience a little bit more about what you're currently doing, some projects. I know you have something special that's going to be coming out in October too. So if you could just open up with a little bit about you and what you're working on, that would be awesome.
Thank you. So, as Becca said, I am a multi-certified career and life coach for women, and I specialize in what I call the upside downs of life, which are transitions, those things that happen to us that cause us to change internally, transform from who we were to who we are becoming. And I am passionate about doing this for women because I've been through so many of these transitions myself and had a 30-year corporate career rising through the leadership ranks. And I have specialized in watching people all my life from the time I was a little girl. And I've always been intrigued about what makes people tick. And my passion for helping women, especially in their careers, comes from my own career upheavals and my own experience getting mentored and coached through them. And I just know that it's so much easier when we have someone that we can trust to talk to work through it. So Becca mentioned that I am launching something new in October. So I'm launching my podcast. It's becoming a TV show.
I just had to
Yes.
celebrate that for a second.
Yes, it is. So I'm so excited. I've been doing this podcast now for 6 years,
Wow.
and I am just loving talking to women like Becca, who are experts in their field and have new perspectives to bring other women. My mission is a lot like Becca's for her podcast, because when we share our stories, when we share our experiences, the women who listen feel like they're not alone.
I just got the
And they're
goosebumps.
not. And they're
Yes.
not. So my company name is Transition and Thrive with Maria. I believe that we are all meant to thrive. It's our time to thrive. So doing what I do with my coaching and my writing, as well as my podcast turned TV show. Yeah, this is just an exciting transformation of my business as well.
That's so great. And there's a few things you said in that opening that I find extremely intriguing and just vulnerable in sharing. I find so with women, we want to share our successes. And I love that you opened up with sharing that your passion came from your own ups and downs and learning lessons. And I know that both of us share a thread of like, hey, the more we talk about all of it, the more we grow and help others grow. So I just want to thank you for leading with that, because the first main question I want to ask you is what got you here? You had a very nice 30-year career with, as you said, some ups and downs. You have a thriving podcast and business. You're turning into a TV show. But what's your backstory? How did this all come to fruition?
Well, you got a minute?
Yeah, you're like, what story? So always
Yeah.
how I go to. I'm like, I've got many, but
Yeah,
yeah,
so
share whichever one is most up.
the Cliff Notes version, right? So as I said, with 30 years in corporate, rising through the ranks, I was in leadership positions in human resources, public relations, investor relations, client relations, and marketing across multiple industries. So it's from manufacturing to broadcasting to publishing to real estate partnerships. and then ad agencies in startups and family run businesses and Fortune 50
Yeah,
companies.
I've
So
seen it all.
it's like, yeah, when I look back on that, I go, wow, I did a lot of stuff and I had a lot of great exposure. And all along the way, I had fabulous mentors who just kind of took me under their wing and led me along. And that was very important to me. And it made a huge impression on starting out as a pretty impressionable young country girl who had moved into the big city, into New York City. So the thing that I noticed about my journey is that it was fraught with ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
And the downs were pretty significant, and they took a profound toll and effect on me. So, from the loss of extraordinary people in my life, including both my parents and two
Wow.
of my older brothers, career upheavals that literally knocked my knees out, two divorces, and a number of relocations. So, all of
Wow.
those things created the environment in which I had to change. I had to embrace the changes that were coming my way or get stuck.
Yeah, I really want to pause for a second because one, I just want to honor what you've been through. I know you got to hear some of my story, but I didn't get to hear as much of yours. And I didn't know that you've lost both your parents too, as well as siblings. And I've been through two layoffs, a divorce, and all those things. And I think what you said is really valuable for the listeners because there's one thing that you said in the opening, you're never alone. But as you listen to us, we're two powerful women chasing our career ambitions and now more meaningful work. But it wasn't a perfect road. And I like that you said you had to choose basically to thrive or get stuck.
Right.
And I feel that so many people don't realize that it is a choice. We feel powerless when these things happen. We
Right.
question why they happen. It's easy to feel victimized, but it's also empowering to realize that you have a choice. So I'd love for you to just talk a little bit about that because I think that was an awesome point to bring up for the listeners.
You're so right. We do have a choice every single day. We have the ability to make multiple choices in our lives, and we can choose to do nothing and just wallow in whatever the bad thing was that happened, or decide after a fashion when bad things happen, we need to take a minute.
Yes,
We
yes.
need to give ourselves grace. We need to take the time it takes for, I always say, emotions need motion. So
Hmm.
we
That's
need the
good.
time for the emotions that we're feeling, whatever they are, to be expressed in some way that makes us feel lighter, better, freer, whatever that is for us. And that takes time.
It
But
does.
after we've figured that part out and we allow the emotions to ebb and flow, and in between we get to be, that's when we get to choose to do something different that will change the way we see things.
I love that you're taking that angle, and it makes a lot of sense that you specialize in transitions just hearing the opening of this. But transitions for a lot of people are really scary.
Mhm.
And like you said, they do take time for you to sort out your feelings, what's important. They kind of throw things upside down a little bit. But on the other side of them is a real, I love that you say transition and thrive because there's this other life that's open for you once you can learn to like leverage what's happened. And so anyway, I would love to ask you to share with the audience if I have a listener that has experienced a transition recently, whether it's with work or with their personal life, and they're kind of in that place of they've just got through the raw emotions. What kind of advice could you give them to maybe live a little bit more empowered or something along those lines? So much.
I wrote a book about this.
Yeah, like I did.
And it's funny that you just called the upside, it just said sometimes they turn us upside down. The title of the book is Upside Down to Right Side Up.
Oh my
Turning,
gosh, I did not know
yeah,
that.
turning
Like, listeners, I'm
transition.
not joking.
Yeah, the subtitle is Turning Transition into Triumph.
See, we were
Um,
meant to be friends. No.
yeah. Yeah, we use a lot of the same words. And it's so, in order for us to find our ways toward thriving, we need to get to know who we are when things are changing, when things have changed. Now, we're not the same as we were before they changed.
Yes.
Those changes affect us. So, asking ourselves, so who are we now
Mm,
that things have changed? And what do we value most now that things have changed? So our
wow.
values shift too. So getting really grounded in those values today help us to make decisions about how we want to move forward. So I'll give you an example of
I love
this.
that.
When I was laid off from my last corporate gig, I was laid off from my entire global team was laid off. And after I helped them get settled, panic, pure panic set in
Mm,
for me. I'd never been laid off, never been fired. And now it turned out to be the end of my 30-year corporate career. By my choice, it was the end. But what I realized is that I could look at things differently, like that the end was really a new beginning.
I just got the goosebumps.
And I
Yes.
got to look at it that way after the panic wore off. After the emotions, there was a lot of crying.
I'm sure
there
there
was
was. I've been
there
there
was
too.
a lot of anxiety and oh my God. The biggest question for me was, so what do I do? Turn all my experience back into another corporate gig or do something else? So when I was faced with that, I realized that I had a choice to make. And before I could make the choice, I had to do some discovery work. I had to
Hmm.
figure out, so what are my options? And when I started, I hired a coach because I needed some clarity. I needed an objective, a perspective
Yeah,
on
sure.
my options. And I needed to get out of my own head. That's what happens when
Yes.
bad things happen, tough things happen. You get laid off, you lose a loved one, you relocate to a new place and you don't know anyone. You feel very isolated in all of those situations.
Yeah.
So, getting some help is probably the very best thing I could have done.
That's amazing. There's so many things in that story that I like want to pull from, but I do like the last part that you landed on. I know like as coaches, we're always like, get a coach, but it's so much more than that because when you are going through these serious transitions, sure, you might have a therapist or something like that, but
Mhm.
you're really looking, you are reconsidering your values, what's important to you, and things like that. And then you're looking to apply it and start possibly making different decisions. And you need someone to not necessarily deal with the past, you need someone to help you with your future.
Right,
And that
right.
I think is the distinguishing part for me is that I also, when I went through my different things, I was like, wow, I just lost both my parents. Like, I'm orphaned now. And then I had a whole bunch of career stuff too, similar to
Oh
you.
boy.
Had a whole thing. But it made me think like, I want to feel good. Not only do I want to feel good, but I want to feel great. I want to love my life. I want to feel the aliveness. I want to thrive. And I needed someone that was already touching and tasting and feeling that to
Right,
help me know what was possible for myself. So I
right.
just love that you shared that.
It's so important. I love what you just said. You need someone who has been where you are and knows what the possibilities are for you because they experienced it themselves, right?
Yeah.
Probably from guidance through someone else, right?
Right. Ah, I'm getting
Yeah.
the goosebumps. Yes.
Yeah, me too. We're just not meant to do this hard stuff in this life alone. So,
Right.
whether you talk to your spiritual advisor or someone who is an astrologer, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It could be your very best friend, so long as they have your best interest at heart,
Yeah,
right?
that is so
And they're not
true.
holding you back. You need someone who will open up the aperture for you and let you see the possibilities. so that you
So,
can go explore.
so speaking of possibilities, what has opened up for you since you took the leap? Okay, so you moved on from the corporate career. I know where you are now, but I don't know that part of the journey. What happened? Like, what opened up for you by just saying yes to trying something new and taking
Yeah.
this leap of faith?
Oh,
You're
um,
like, again, which version of the story can I share?
yeah, yeah. So what opened up for me was a world that I'd never imagined. If you had told me, this has been 10 years now that I've been in my private practice. And if you had told me back then that I would be doing what I'm doing now, I would have said you're crazy. Of course, I would not have written a book. I wouldn't be the host of a TV show. I wouldn't have had a podcast for the last 6 seasons. No, I wouldn't have met all these fabulous women that I've interviewed along the way who have helped me co create resources for other women. And that's
Wow.
what every one of these podcasts that we do is,
Yes.
that it's a resource for someone else. I would never have imagined all of that. But it wasn't easy to go from being in the corporate world to becoming an entrepreneur.
Oh no.
I,
People always said like, "Oh, just go be an entrepreneur." I
yeah, well,
started
just start your own
entrepreneuring.
business.
I was like, "Oh, that's hard. That's hard."
It is hard, and it's a great idea to be the CEO of your life and your business. It's a great idea. It's a great concept to have the freedom, but it takes a lot of doing and a
Hmm.
lot of being to get there.
Yes.
And I'll never forget the biggest hurdle. So after the hurdle of the panic when I got laid off, the next biggest hurdle I've had in my life is the self-doubt.
Ooh, that like talk to me a little bit about that because I know with the listenership here, we have a lot of career powerful women and men, and we talk about self-doubt and imposter syndrome. It comes up from time to time. So I was like, ooh, you just hit on a word that I know the listeners are like, please tell me more.
Yeah, 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 yeah. They call it imposter syndrome now. 10 years ago, that
Yeah.
wasn't such a word that
Yeah, I think
or
imposter
phrase.
syndrome and burnout are two
Yeah,
words that are used now that weren't really
yeah,
used 10 years ago.
yeah, that's right. I burned out in my corporate career, but we didn't call it that.
Yeah. It's like, what's wrong with Maria?
Yeah,
She just
what's
can't
wrong
keep
with
going.
Maria? Right. Yeah. So the self doubt was probably the biggest thing for me to overcome. I used to think when I first started my business, I thought, well, who will hire me to be their coach when I've only been in this business for like a nanosecond?
Right.
And it took the wisdom of another coach to remind me that I've been doing this for over 20 years. I was a coach and a mentor in my corporate career
Yes.
going back 20 years. I worked primarily with women on their career and life choices, and I helped them to hone their leadership skills. And I helped them close the career gaps, figure out what those skill gaps are, and then find harmony between their career and their life.
I love that.
So all of that work fulfilled me. It was not my job, it was my avocation while I was a leader in corporate, but I loved it. It gave me purpose. So when I recognized how prevalent the self doubt was, it took a minute or two for me to really step into the belief that I know what I'm doing. I've been
Yes.
doing it for years. People have sought me out in the corporate world to help them, to coach them, to mentor them. And it took me a while to get over. It was a pretty big hurdle. But then I realized that I could kind of step into my confidence about my credentials and my experience. And then everything started to shift.
I just also want to re-emphasize that for the listeners too. Your skills are transferable.
Absolutely.
They're so transferable. I had to have a similar conversation, so I love that so much of her stories have like similar threads. Because when I started my business a few years ago too, I was like, this is my first time doing this. I've had a lot of the self doubt. And my coach is like, but is it really? I'm
What
like,
is it
I don't
really?
understand what you're talking about. She's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Becca, you've been a sales leader in Fortune 500
I
for like
know.
the last 20 years.
I know.
You're
Yeah,
going to be fine. You actually probably have more experience than some of the coaches that are out in the field right now. So,
exactly.
yes, you can coach. Yes, you can write a book. Yes, you have enough stories.
Yeah,
And then she said that one liner to me. She's like, your skills are transferable. And I was like, I felt like I had that aha moment. I'm like, oh my
yeah,
gosh, yes, they are. Okay, I feel
yeah,
better now.
yeah,
So,
exactly. And then now you get to figure out, okay, which are the skills that I get to use that
yes,
will help someone else?
I love that. And we have 5 minutes left, so we're not in a rush. But I do want to ask you another question because
Sure.
this question always gets such like juicy answers, and I want to make sure we have time for it. So, why are you so passionate about this work? It's already oozing through, but tell us more.
Can you tell I'm passionate about this work?
Just a little.
It's just so rewarding to witness the transformation that happens for my clients and to know that we work together and the tools and the techniques that I teach that they get to fill their what I call their treasure chest with all of that stuff and it can change their lives forever. Those tools, they're not mine anymore, they're theirs,
Yes,
right? And they'll never be in the same place as where I met them.
that's
So
such a
that,
wonderful perspective because it's so
yeah,
true.
that's very rewarding. I just got goosies.
I did
Um,
too.
so I love that they are more confident, resilient, and brave to tackle any new upheaval in their life or their career. It doesn't matter. They are more prepared. They will bounce back better than ever before. And that is a significant transformation.
And it is such a honor, I think is the word that I'm searching for, to witness someone else's transformation.
It's my joy. It
Yeah.
truly is my joy to guide them on their journey. It truly is a joy.
So, all right, now we're getting down to wrap up. So, I want to ask you, what would you like to share with the listeners? Let's pretend that a lot of them are going through a transition right now, and you could give some words of wisdom for them on their journey.
So, what I would like to say is you don't deserve to stay stuck where you don't belong. And there are resources for everyone out here in the world, whether they are offered by Becca or by me or by some other coach, consultant, or professional out here. There's something for you. Just don't stay stuck where you don't belong because you don't deserve that.
Oh man, goosebumps again. I got them like all the way up to my face. That was so good. Because listeners, Maria said it very sincerely and genuinely. You don't deserve to stay stuck. There is so much more to you. And let us both be witness that on the other sides of our trials was this beautiful life that we didn't even know was possible, and that's available for you too. That just like your ending brought like a little tear to my eye. So
Oh,
good. All right, so let's go ahead and share, if you can, how our listeners can stay in contact with you.
okay. Thank you, Becca. I really have appreciated this opportunity to chat with you again. I've loved it. So you can find the TV show on E360 TV, which is on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, any of those, your favorite streaming services. Look for E360 TV and then look for the Fresh Takes channel. And the show is called Tips for the Transition, the Career Roadmap. So you can find me on TV, or you can, if you're going through something now and you want a terrific manual that'll help you, my book, as I mentioned to you before, is called Upside Down to Right Side Up, Turning Transition into Triumph. And you can find that on Amazon.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to grab myself a copy too. Maria, it was so great to have you on the podcast. I know we'll be talking to each other again,
You
but
will.
thank you for coming on the Empowered Half Hour.
Thank you so much, Becca. It's been a pleasure.